Hello, it's Nat again, and in this video I'm gonna talk about a very important topic when it comes to making manga, comics, or webcomics. It is a very important topic considering that making manga fast is actually a skill on its own, and it's very crucial when it comes to making a manga or comics in a regular schedule. It is also one of very good reasons why most people drop their manga project, because it actually bores them and it's very hard to finish. And as we know, very popular mangakas go on hiatus for a very long time because actually finishing the manga is time consuming. So what can we do to make the process a lot easier and faster? Obviously without losing the quality or the main structure or overall, because not only do we have to care about the time it takes to make a page, but also about the quality we're showing to the readers. And we definitely don't want to lose that quality. But one thing's for sure, you can't make a manga with full-on illustrations on every single panel, because that will take you 10 hours to make, considering that each illustration can take 1 to 2 hours. And this is why I'm gonna start by saying that the number one way to make manga faster is to have a simpler art style. If you have a very detailed art style when making illustrations, you don't want to transfer that same art style into your comics and mangas. Why? Because it's obvious, because it's going to take you a lot of time and you're going to burn out really quick. But you can actually turn that art style into a much simpler version of it by saving some very important parts of your art style and just losing some others that are unimportant to storytelling. Let's take a character drawing, for example. If you wanted to turn your very detailed art style into a simpler one for drawing characters, then you can actually go by losing some details in some parts of the face, the body, and the clothes. Because the character is gonna be the number one thing you're gonna draw the most in your manga, and making sure you can draw a character fast is very important. Let's take some aspects of the face, for example. The eyes tell the most about the character. The eyes are going to be the most detailed part of the face, and the next detailed part of the face is going to be the mouth, because the mouth also tells a lot of emotions about the characters. And then the eyebrows, with the nose being on the last place, because it actually shows so little about the character on its own. It can be like a simple line or a simple dot. And I also see some art styles not even including the nose at all. So basically, keep the eyes as detailed as you can and make them as expressive as you can. And then just lose some other aspects, like you don't want to over detail the eyelids or the cheeks or other parts. And then comes the hair, because there's times where a lot of artists draw the hair in very detailed ways, which is good and it's actually very pretty to look at, but for the most part it's very time consuming and unnecessary to storytelling. So make sure you can draw the hair in one simple shape, and if your character has colored hair and you want to put some skin tones inside the hair, then make sure the line art is clean and you can fill all the gaps in, just to make it the process of filling the skin tones a lot easier. And also another aspect of your art style that you can simplify is the body. Now, when it comes to the body, there's not much to simplify. You're gonna still have to keep that structure and proportion there. But one thing I can suggest simplifying on the body is not detailing the muscles, but keeping the overall shape of the anatomy. And also when it comes to drawing clothes, you can simplify the folds into a few lines rather than just shading everything in. It's important to be efficient with your line art as much as you can, just to help you all with the time thing. Now, another tip that I can give you is a bit odd, and that is for a really good reason. When it comes to making manga, we see a lot of professional mangas with really detailed backgrounds. But that doesn't mean we have to draw detailed backgrounds on every single panel. Backgrounds can actually be very simple. It can take you to draw a background even less time than it can take you to draw a character, for example. But the reason why we see so many detailed art, background art in professional mangas is because it takes multiple assistants to draw a manga. and the main artist usually just draws the characters and they focus more on the story rather than just focusing on the backgrounds themselves. Now, it is okay to draw a background with like very detailed art sometimes when the panel is very important or you want to show a really important scene. That's totally fine, but for the most part, the backgrounds will be overlooked and the reader will usually focus most on the characters' expressions and what they're saying rather than just focusing on what's going on in the background. So just focus on making the background simple. In those cases, it could be if you're trying to draw a background of mountains and some trees, then just focus on drawing lines that actually convey that and not put that much details like cross-hatching. If it makes sense, then it's good enough for some panels. You don't want to maybe draw like the same backgrounds over and over again, but this is a good way for those very small panels that they're barely visible when it comes to a phone screen or a manga book. And also, there's other tricks that you can use to make backgrounds much faster. And I've seen a lot of professional mangakas and comic artists use them, which is basically taking a photo and turning it into a drawing. You can either do that by tracing over it, and it has to be like your own photo or just like a stock image that is free to use for everybody. Just make sure to not use somebody else's photos, but it can be like you can either trace from it or use some tricks in Clip Studio Paint and other apps and softwares where you can turn a photo into like manga background style. I would suggest it. I've used it only once, to be honest, like the first time I made my manga, and it was in the very first page that I actually used it in 2 different panels. I didn't even use it, like it was some free assets from Ibis Paint and stuff, which is good. It's not a really bad thing. If it's free, then you can use it, but I would suggest just making your own pictures and drawing over them or just turning them into manga backgrounds and stuff. As for the last tip, I think it's not only applicable to making comics, but also in everything that you do in real life and other works as well. And that is having a work ethic, or basically a work structure. What I mean by that is that if you want to keep the art style very detailed and you want to draw backgrounds the whole time, what you can do to make the whole process simpler is having a structure to basically guide you through the whole process. For me, my manga structure is drawing the storyboards very loosely, then going over the storyboards, the first draft I would call it, a bit more into details, just enough to make more sense and actually help me through the line art. Now, I've seen some other artists just do a second draft or a third draft, but I tend to just go straight to the line arts after the first draft. Then comes the line arts, and for the line arts I tend to keep in mind that I want my brush to be the same throughout the whole manga page and throughout the whole process as well. I use that natural G pen, I don't know what it's called, in Clip Studio Paint, just for the whole texture and stuff, and I use that pen into like the size 8 to 12, depending on what I'm drawing. So not changing that, just to keep the whole art very consistent. And after that, I tend to go on the screen tones. Now, for this page, I didn't actually put screen tones into it, but that's like the most annoying part for me. And then the last part is drawing the speech bubbles and the lettering. And I know this is wrong, at least for me and for everybody else, but do as I say and not as I do. Don't leave this part for last. Don't leave your speech bubble for last, because it's going to be really hard for you to get the right placement of the speech bubbles and the letters, because sometimes you have to make them smaller than you should because they can cover up some really important art. But you know, I just tend to keep that in mind when storyboarding in the first phase and drafting, so I think it's alright, but just do this part on the very beginning just so you don't come into trouble later on. I kept this work schedule, work ethic throughout the last manga book I made, which was 110 pages long, so it was really needed. I knew everything what I needed to do next, and just not having to worry about what I have to do next is really helpful and saves you a lot of time and nerves as well. This not only helps with time, but also consistency in the pages. And consistency is what shows quality in your art. If your art goes from being super detailed in one page and then super rough in the other, it shows that you lose quality really quick. But if you tend to keep the whole art style very rough throughout the whole series, that's alright, or very detailed as well. That's totally alright. Quality in the end doesn't really depend on your art style. It actually depends on how well you can manage that art style and how consistent you can draw it. So keep in mind these 3 tips the next time you're drawing your manga. For now, I'm working on 3 different manga series, a comic series, I would call them. This page you're seeing drawing right now is from a one-shot I'm working on, a 30-page one-shot, and I drew all the storyboards beforehand, so all the story was written, drawn, and then I start with every page one by one. So I really hope you stick out for more. You can read my manga in my personal website. I currently have published like 3 chapters and I have 2 more left because it's only 110 pages long. You can also check out for more of my art into my Instagram account. So I really hope you stick out for more videos in the future, and also keep creating, just keep having fun. Don't overthink any part of it.